today we are in my kitchen and I'm gonna show you guys how to make French fries. We're doing hand-cut French fries in the oven, and recently I have found a couple of really cool tricks and tips that I really wanted to share. So I'm gonna go through all of that in the next couple minutes in this hand-cut French fries in the oven video. Okay, so here we go. These potatoes have been washed and scrubbed, and I trimmed off some funny looking spud parts, so they're good to go. And the first thing you do is just cut them into French fry shape, which is super simple. If you like crispier fries, you want to cut them a little thinner. If you like the thick, like potato-y in the middle fries, of course leave them a little bit fatter. And I'm doing like maybe 3.5 potatoes today because one had a really big weird spot that went into the inside, so I had to get rid of that. But this will probably fill up. I have a large baking sheet over here I'm going to show you in a minute, and this will probably fill up that baking sheet. So two of the tricks I've learned lately that have been super helpful with doing this, because our family, this is a weird spot, loves potatoes, and they're actually pretty good for you. They have a bad reputation because we usually eat them as French fries, but if you can enjoy them as actual food and not the processed version cooked in inflammatory rancid oils, probably also carcinogenic oils, they actually have health benefits. They're a good source of potassium, fiber. Of course, they are like a carb or starch, so you want to kind of watch those at each meal. We have kind of a lower carb philosophy around here, more paleo-ish. Lots of healthy fats and proteins. But anyways, potatoes can fit into that, as long as you don't eat them like all the time and it's not like the main course of your meal. It's a great side. So yeah, tips lately are that I found have been really helpful. We cook them on parchment paper. I used to try to do this on tin foil, and it was like a total disaster because it would stick. The potatoes would stick to the foil. So now we do parchment paper. They don't stick at all. There's actually 3 things I've learned lately now that I'm thinking about it. The second one is you've got to coat them really, really good in the oil that you're using. Another weird spot. Should have used these potatoes a little sooner. So what I do now, I used to just kind of drizzle the oil on top, but now I actually will put the potatoes in a bowl, and I'll put the oil in, and you'll see in a minute I'll toss the potatoes in the oil, and that just helps to coat them really, really well. I think it helps them get a little bit crispier when you're cooking them. And these will actually, when you're cooking them, they'll get a little bit of a brown color to them, which is really nice. It really looks like a pretty legit French fry, minus the, they usually have a little bit of like a breading or a coating on the outside. It doesn't have that, but the potato itself turns kind of brown, so it feels like the real deal, which is cool. And then, if you're wondering how many to make for your house, I would just kind of potato it per person. So if you're making, for 3 people, we have 3 people in our house. One of them is 3 years old. So probably like for our family, 2.5 would have been perfect. Then I would have had a potato. My husband would have had a potato. And our toddler would probably eat like half of a potato. So that's how I would do that. And then it kind of depends on the size of your family and how many people you're cooking for, how many you want to have. They do reheat pretty well also, so that's kind of nice if you had leftovers. And the third really cool tip that I've learned is that if you space them out on the paper versus like throwing them all on one sheet pan just to save like room in the oven, or to not have to like wash multiple sheet pans after you make dinner. But if you space them out, the air flows a little bit better in the oven, and that helps with the crispiness too. So if they're too close together, I think the potatoes you know, being a starch in nature, kind of steam each other in the oven because they do contain water. So if you spread them out, it helps you get that really nice crispiness that people tend to want when they eat French fries. And remember, food safety tip with potatoes, so you always scrub them. I do organic with these, and that does relate somewhat to food safety, because you eat the outside. So my rule of thumb for that is if you're eating the skin of something, it should be organic, because you don't want to eat directly where the pesticides are sprayed. Of course, you'll end up probably, no matter what your best efforts are, consuming some of the pesticide, which we know is not good for our health. So we do organic potatoes in our house. And the other thing I was going to say with food safety, I think most people know this, but you don't want to ever eat the inside of a potato with like a green skin. Or I should really say you don't want to eat the green skin of a potato. So if you see green skin, and none of these have it, if you were to be cutting a potato and you saw like green on the inside of the skin, like right here, if like there was like a green kind of border right here, you would want to discard that. That is actually, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a neurotoxin. It can make you really sick. I have a good friend who got really sick from not knowing that. I think when we were in grad school, and she ate the green part of potatoes and was, I think she was throwing up, kind of pretty violently ill. So just a tip there. And another really good cooking tip too, whenever you're using an oil, is to make sure you're cooking with the oil that's meant for the temperature that you're cooking with, so the proper oil. So when you're roasting something at like a high temperature, like we're gonna do with these, I usually cook around 400. You want a high heat oil. So sunflower oil is one of those high heat oils. Spectrum makes a really nice line of oils. So in our house, we usually use the Spectrum brand. But if you were to use like olive oil or really any oil, and you noticed the food was smoking and the oil was kind of burning, just a little bit of salt and pepper here, that would be a sign that the oil is becoming rancid, carcinogenic. It's not something that you want to use. So you can either do this with your fingers or with a spoon. You just want to make sure everything gets tossed and mixed really evenly and nicely in here. Oops, it's tossed a little too far. That's okay because I cleaned the counters before I started shooting this. Yeah, so just to mix it up, I probably will use my hands a little bit just to make sure all of the potato pieces have oil on them, because that helps with the cooking process. And another thing lately, just a personal pet peeve that we try to avoid, Whole Foods, it's really frustrating, is now putting canola oil in a lot of their products. They didn't used to use that, and I have a feeling it has to do with the Amazon takeover, not being as conscientious, or maybe not caring about health as much. So that's another reason. We used to buy the Whole Foods like frozen oven fries, and once I realized they started putting canola oil in those, I started looking a little harder into how I could make our own at-home fries a little bit better. I think they used to use safflower oil and they switched over to canola, probably because it's cheap. It's one of the genetically modified crops. Of course, you can get organic canola oil, but I'd rather just make my own than have to think about that. So anyways, here's the part, and I actually, this is a pretty large baking sheet. I don't know if you can tell, it's pretty big. And this is the part where you just want to make sure the French fries all have kind of room to breathe and the air can really flow in the oven and help them to get crispy. So cool. So these will come out. They'll be super delicious. I'm probably going to do 400 for maybe 20 minutes. I don't know, I might check at 15 and then flip if I need to. Okay, so funny story. My phone rang and I got totally distracted, forgot these were in the oven. They're probably in there for 25 minutes. I didn't end up flipping them, but they look awesome. They've got the brown crispiness like I was talking about. And I think it was the perfect amount of time. So like probably 20-25 minutes at 400 is what this was. So yeah, if you try them, let us know how you like them.